Who was the first person to ever be photographed? What did it look like? Who was it? What was the context? The answer isn't what you would expect. Surely, the first person to ever be photographed was a king, a queen, a conqueror, a ruler, someone with so much influence that they would represent every photo of every person ever photographed after them. But it's not that. It's not that at all. The first photograph of a human, the first time a human was ever frozen in time in not a painting, but a true image, a true reflection of reality, without any touches of an artist, an unbiased, unfiltered look at a human being, was in this photo taken in 1838. See him? The photo had an exposure time of 7 minutes, so this stationary person shining his shoes was the only one that was visible and not a ghostly apparition or blur from people who were moving. We do not know who this random Parisian was. They did not know that they just so happened to be the first human ever photographed. There's something so interesting about a photo. We've been painting for at least 40,000 years now, depicting reality based on whatever the artist wanted it to be, but never having a true, unbiased look of events in the past. A photo captures a running moment in time before it can get away. It's confirmation that the past did in fact happen, that these strangers hundreds of years ago did in fact exist. That's what's so fascinating about seeing videos of these times. It personifies the people living in them. These were real people, just like you and me. They actually wore these things. This place actually looked like that. These aren't actors or movie sets. These are real people. It feels almost impossible. These are images and videos of a time that no longer exists, a time nobody breathing will remember, and peering into it feels wrong. There's something so unsettling about photos of times and places and people that no longer exist. This footage of a city in modern-day Ukraine in 1982 looks so normal. It's cheerful. The buildings whiz by us in a moving car, people are smiling, children are playing, urban planners in the city are being interviewed about planting more trees. But behind all of this normality exists an ugly truth. This cheerful city was the city of Pripyat in modern-day Ukraine, 4 years before the largest nuclear disaster in history, the Chernobyl reactor meltdown, which turned this quaint city into a ghost town plagued with radiation that won't disperse for another 20,000 years. This Pripyat you see in these videos doesn't exist anymore. Right now, only this one exists. But through videos and photos, we see how oddly normal it was. Every smiling face and public event is overshadowed by an inevitable death of a place the inhabitants were blissfully ignorant to. There's such a fascination in remembering these things. Remembering the 1800s, remembering places before disasters. Memory, especially in the form of photos and videos, is so damn interesting. It all has to do with our inherent desire to remember things, to know what these bygone eras looked like, to remember the people who existed in them, to remember what the world looked like, what it sounded like, how it felt to be alive in a time that no longer exists. This idea is an essential theme in the game Season, A Letter to the Future. It's a game all about remembering, all about these documentations of the past. Only, you're not the one uncovering it, you're the one documenting it. Season is about a dying world, a world that is about to be rid of what came before it. Each era of Season's world has its own separate season, a season of war, a season of modernity, a golden season. After your best friend has a prophetic dream about the apocalyptic end of the current season, an end that will completely erase the memories of everyone, you leave your village, the first to do so in a long time, equipped with a camera, a recording device, and a scrapbook. The main objective of the game is to simply record what it's like to live right now, taking photos on your camera, recording audio on a microphone, and arranging these things in each page of your scrapbook before the world ends. There are no threats, there are barely any puzzles, just you, a bicycle, your supplies, and a dying world. The task feels almost impossible. The ultimate fate of the world is so daunting. The situation our main character, Estelle, is in is so terrible. Estelle's objective seems hopeless. How can one possibly document this much stuff? It will never be complete. It will never be perfect. You can never describe what it is truly like to live right now. There are so many versions of right now, it's impossible. Any attempt to do so is absolutely futile. And yet, our main character still tries. Throughout the game, you take pictures, record audio, and fold these things neatly into your scrapbook with the faint hope that maybe someone will at some point in some unknown future find it and remember. Her reaction to the end seems nearly confusing. So you find out the world is ending, and everything right now will die, and a new season will come about from the ashes. You will cease to remember anything or anyone, and your reaction isn't to stay home with your family and spend your final days together, or start doing whatever you want in the face of annihilation. What you want to do is to let someone that might not even exist potentially find it? Why does she do this? Why does she record this time on Earth? Why does it take priority? Why does she trust that her scrapbook will survive an unknown number of years into the future? Why does she trust that anyone will ever find it? Why does she trust that anyone will even care? Who is Estelle even doing this for? She doesn't know. The desire to preserve this time in history is so strong that it goes beyond all reason. Her fear of being forgotten feeds someone else's desire to remember. The majority of season takes place in Tieng Valley, a valley that will be completely flooded the following day. The valley has mostly been evacuated, so you will be one of, if not the last person to see it. There's such a palpable sense of mourning in Tieng Valley. That sense is prevalent throughout the entire game, but in Tieng Valley especially. It will not only be a victim of this memory death, but also a physical one as well. Going through Tieng Valley is like attending a funeral. Every large structure, every weirdly named cow, every mystical tree, every home adorned with decorations of a past that will never be realized again, will all be under a mile of water by daybreak. Gone. And you know this going in, but you still can't help but smile at the journey. You take your photos and record your audio and enjoy the company of those weirdly named cows. It feels like a real place. A place where memory has literally crystallized. A place where flowers can tell the stories of eras past, and no one will ever see it again. The most interesting part about Tieng Valley, at least to me, is its religion. There are various shrines to different gods all throughout the valley. There's the Tide, the god of dreams, the Din, the god of memory. And then there's the Void, the god of forgetting. You interact with these three statues. The Tide gives you a strange dream where your mother talks to you. Din gives you a memory that doesn't belong to you. Void? Well, Void doesn't give you anything. Instead, it takes something from you. If you choose to interact with the god of forgetting, unlike the other two, you don't gain any new knowledge. You forget something. You forget your own name. As Estelle describes, when a memory leaves you, for a moment you feel the absence, but then it fills itself back in. I wonder if anyone would feel the absence of this season if it wasn't recorded in the scrapbook. At one point you come across this beautiful forest, strung with lighting, and with various statues. Eventually you find who made them, an old artist unsatisfied with her work and the life she spent on it. She claims she'll leave the valley eventually, but it's hard to tell if she's being truthful or if she wants to be buried with her works. What would happen if I wasn't here to capture this? Nobody would remember any of this. And that's a scary thought. What if nobody remembered the space you're in right now? What if one day your childhood bedroom, the place you had your first kiss, the playground you went to as a kid was taken away, simply forgotten? It seems almost unfair, unjust. This will happen to everything. Tieng Valley isn't alone. Your bedroom, your home, your favorite place to eat will all someday cease to exist. Be remembered by no one. I guess looking at it through that lens, I understand why no matter the odds stacked against her, Estelle still wishes for someone to remember, even if it isn't her. That this time she grew up in, both grand and insignificant, ought to be recorded for the sake of memory. As a result, every grand view I saw and snapped a photo of, every story I heard from a local, every sound from every animal I heard was all recorded. But that's the beautiful irony of the game. You don't need to record a lot. You just need 5 things to complete a page. And yet my pages looked more like this, simply because of my refusal to let this place be forgotten. There is a decision you make as you leave Tieng Valley. It's not a mandatory one, it's not even one a lot of people will get, but it's the emotional peak of the entire experience, at least in my opinion. Near the end of your journey in Tieng Valley, a kid offers to give you a tour of the place one last time. If you follow him and go on the entire tour, you eventually get to his father's grave. A grave that, within hours, will end up underwater. The kid, named Kochi, tells you how it happened. He was there with him. You want to tell him the fate of your own father who went missing. Maybe it'll comfort him, make him feel like he's not alone. But then the game hits you with a decision. You must decide whether to record your conversation or keep it private. Despite Estelle's only objective being to share everything with the future, she feels like this is private. She hasn't been letting moments pass for the whole game, capturing them through photographs and audio at the expense of so much. And now you have to concede to wiping this memory clean off the face of the earth. You are now the judge, jury, and executioner of this very moment. Is the moment frozen in time, or do you just let the present be the present and let it pass? I was here for minutes wondering what to do. Focus on my goal of recording everything or leave something personal out of the history books. I chose to record. I chose to record because I, like Estelle, have grown fond of recording. Every page I've obsessed over, every photo I've tried to get just right, every snippet of audio, I wasn't just ready to let this moment slip away. I recorded Tieng Valley out of a love for it, for its people, for its environment. I valued it. I wanted to capture every second of it because I knew it was going to be gone. But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't flooding? What if the world wasn't ending? Would I still nitpick every photo? Would I still make sure to capture the sound of every animal? I don't think I would. We put value on things when they're gone or are about to be gone, even if we don't initially care for them. What is Tieng Valley without the flood? How many other valleys are there with 10 times the population and personality that I haven't explored simply because they might still be around when the world forgets? It's the imperfection of memory that's so blissful. A memory can be a perfect representation of what we wanted something to have been, not what it actually was. Tieng Valley is only important because of the flood. The world was only important enough to document on the very last day of its life. What is Tieng Valley without the flood? It's just a valley. We don't know the true value of something until it's gone, but we value it twice as much when it's about to be gone. We get these memories and grip them tight before they inevitably fall out of our grasps. This was my experience with Season, and it was inspirational in a way. It made me think maybe I shouldn't procrastinate on documenting the world around me before it's gone. So I made an impulsive purchase.
By the sea, by the beautiful sea, you and I, oh how happy we'll be.
The idea of buying an instant camera came from a lot of places, but it was after playing Season that I fully decided to commit to picking one up. One thing you need to know about instant cameras is that the camera itself isn't the commitment, it's the film. Do you want to know how much it costs to buy 40 photos worth of physical I-type film? And I say this with a slight bit of shame. It costs 60 American dollars. A lot of you might have just shuddered at how exorbitant that price is. And yeah, I agree, the price of film is completely unreasonable. Why would anyone in their right mind actually buy and use this thing? But after using the camera, I got it. I understand why people spend so much money on this stuff. Here's why. On a trip to southwestern Europe I took in early 2023, I took 846 photos over the span of 7 days. Have I looked at all of them? No. I don't usually look at these photos because they're buried so deep in my folder that I just never bother to scroll down there and reminisce. And when I do, I usually only look at a few standout photos. I've never done a proper scroll through of those nearly 1,000 photos, ever. There are probably photos in there I've taken and have never looked at again. The Polaroid is different though. No matter how insignificant the memory, the very fact I was willing to spend a photo documenting it demonstrates the value of whatever moment I was trying to capture. If a memory was valuable enough to spend a photo on, I know it's not one I'll forget soon. I want to tell you a story of capturing a memory on this thing, and one that I won't soon forget. I found myself in one of those super rich neighborhoods, complete with modern houses that look like something I would build in Minecraft in 2015. The entire place looked like a fairy tale. And of course, this rich neighborhood had a golf course and a country club. It wouldn't be a rich neighborhood without those. Either way, I wanted to see if I could get any photos of the golf course itself. But then, it started to rain. It started to rain hard. And my camera bag, to my knowledge, was not waterproof. So I took refuge inside of the country club. I was expecting to be denied entrance because, you know, I didn't live there. But surprisingly, the side door opened right up. And in the country club, I saw no one. Literally nobody. The dining area was empty, the bar was empty, the front desk was empty. I wasn't even sure if the place was open or not. I couldn't get on my bike and leave because the Polaroid would get wet and probably stop working. I couldn't call an Uber or call someone to pick me up because I was in a gated neighborhood that I didn't live in. I was completely stranded alone in this country club, equipped with nothing but my Polaroid. I explored every inch of this place, the dining area, the bar, the kitchen, the gym, and the whole time I wanted to take pictures, but I knew I could only take so many. I had 7 photos left, and I didn't want to use them all. So, the question arose, how do I document right now, this experience, this entire place, in one photo? I couldn't even begin to describe to you how big this place was. So many rooms I felt lost in it, ballrooms bigger on the inside than the outside, long hallways stretching out for eternity, the remnants and ghosts of people eating in a liminal dining room. I felt the frustration Estelle felt attempting to document an entire season with photos and audio alone. This place, and my experience here, couldn't be summed up in one photo, but all I could do was try. Eventually I took the photo. The rain died down, and I was able to leave. Here it is. The photo is flawed. You might even call it bad. From the looks of it, it developed weirdly, likely due to the residual raindrops moistening the corner of my bag I let it develop in. It completely overexposed the windows, though I said it that way, otherwise it would be completely underexposed and dark. But despite all of this photo is more powerful to me than anything high-res I could have taken on my phone. It doesn't look like a photo to me. This photo looks like a memory. It has all the imperfections, all the rough edges, all the blurriness of remembering. It feels like if you dug into my mind and pulled out the experience I had in that destitute country club in the rainfall, this is what you would find. You wouldn't find some high-resolution image of every single room all perfect. You probably wouldn't even find what the outside world looked like. But you would find something like this, an imperfect memory. How blessed am I to have it in my hand. This is a memory, and I will hold on to it close. It took 846 images of Europe to barely remember the things that happened outside of those photos. It took one to capture the essence of those moments spent in that country club, and I don't think any digital camera could have done that for me. But something I find more fascinating than documenting the world with pictures is with writing. And I'm not talking about history books, which usually give biased accounts from a bird's eye view of a situation in the past. No. I'm talking about the views and notes of an individual, a real person who existed during a particular time, who kept a logbook, a journal. Journaling is one way we can get to know people of the past. People can journal for a variety of reasons: mental health, a record to keep of themselves, or just as a fun hobby. But I think one of, if not the main reason people journal, is to remember. Our memory is imperfect. I can't tell you the story of every day I've experienced or the finer details of every exciting thing that has ever happened to me. Even photos are taken out of context and don't reflect the bigger picture. Which is why a journal is so helpful at getting to know the past. I've been one to document these moments myself. Okay, a quick warning. This section contains many very embarrassing pages from my journals throughout elementary and middle school. Be advised, you might cringe a lot. I know I do. So, here we go. When I was 8 years old, I began writing in a journal/diary of my own, and I was inspired by the book series Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's a classic for many kids born in the 2000s, and I remember knowing kids who, after reading the entire series, thought about starting their own diary in the same vein. Many of those people would get a couple of pages in during one good session of writing, stop, and never pick it up again. That wasn't me. I began writing in a journal in preparation for a trip to Tennessee when I was 8 years old, and I simply never stopped. These old journals from my elementary school times are a strange artifact for me, because they're memories of things I would have normally forgotten. Much like Season, the memories of much of my early life have been crystallized and put into a medium that is impossible to replicate with memory alone. I don't know why I didn't stop at the first few pages like so many other kids my age. I don't know why I continued for 8 years. I never particularly enjoyed writing my life in a journal. I was never good at drawing, but even at that age I had a fervent desire to remember these times. I never wrote for my own enjoyment. I distinctly remember, even at only 8 years old, only writing so that maybe one day I could look back, and these times might not be forgotten forever. The person I was as an 8-year-old is a different person from who I am now. And in every detailed description, in every drawing that tried to capture what it was like to be that age, I saw, in my past self, a distinct fear of being forgotten. A fear that one day I would grow up, and the person I was then, and the people I knew, and the memories I made right now might all be forgotten. And maybe I can halt that a little longer. And I still haven't grown out of that yet. I'm still journaling every day. I'm still writing about each memory I make, no matter how insignificant, simply because I don't want to forget. But I didn't know at the time that it was impossible. How is someone who hasn't even graduated elementary school document an entire section of their life like that? That thought began to appear after a certain age. It was as daunting as Estelle attempting to capture the essence of an entire season in a scrapbook. But before that, I wrote not knowing that there were things I could never remember, and I think that's why journals 1 through 3 are the most interesting for me. They are the story of my life between the ages of 8 to 10 years old, totaling 457 pages of drawings, writing, emotions, thoughts, feelings, and memories. They are important to me, because they represent a time where I wanted to remember everything and really thought that I could. The first 3 were so imperfect. Details I remembered just not mentioning, stories completely exaggerated, straight up lies in some cases. Unsurprisingly, 8 to 10-year-old me isn't exactly a reliable narrator. There are some pages torn out, some pages with handwriting so bad I couldn't even hope to read them. But in these pages, I found so much personality. There are many memories in these first 3 books that I had completely forgotten until I went back and read them for this video, so I guess it served its purpose. But something else was captured in these books that weren't the raw memories I had kept stored away. It was a child that doesn't exist today. A child hoping a new, older version of himself would care to look back on what his life was all about. The new one has some of the things the old one had, some memories, definitely grew out of that old person. But through the imperfect scribbles and scrawls on each paper, I saw a child knowing he wouldn't stay this age forever, desperate not to be forgotten. That child was me. These imperfections made the journal mine, but they don't belong to me. They belong to and are the stories of a kid who hasn't existed for a couple of years now, trying to make his journal as cool and as interesting as possible so that maybe one day, the world wouldn't forget who he was. That one day, his future self wouldn't forget he existed. It's not the story of me. All 10 journals are the stories of a me that no longer exists, documented not through my head, but through a tangible but ultimately mistake-ridden medium. And sometimes that kid would hit me with a truck of nostalgia. I remember that thing I did. I remember being accused of that. I remember that birthday. The books are filled with memories like that, stored in a way so unintentionally misguided I almost find them brilliant. I flip to a page and I'm on an overnight school trip. I flip to another and I failed a test. I flip to another and I've graduated middle school. I've never read these journals in full chronological order. Instead, I pick them up, flip to a random page and just remember. I flip page by page until I've memorized the entire thing without even reading it from front to back. And yet there are still pockets I'm sure I haven't discovered, places I simply have yet to flip to. These pages, looked upon when they were written and never again, do undoubtedly exist in my journals, memories waiting to be discovered. I discovered, at the very back of my second journal, hidden right after the so-called credits, a place where for years I thought was the end, was actually hiding a list of signatures from all of my friends and all the people I mentioned in my journal. People I no longer know, but people who exist as crystallized memories in my journals. In my third journal, I got some of my friends to write their own stories down. None of them were very long, and yet it almost feels wrong. It feels wrong that I own a piece of their past. It feels like I took something from them, that someone else will never remember an event because of me. And yet here they are, and here I am remembering for them. As a collective, all of my journals are just memories waiting to be discovered. By an older version of myself, sure, but also maybe by someone else. One day, when there isn't a new version of myself to precede the previous, when I pass on, maybe someone, a grandchild, a great-grandchild, a stranger 100 years into the future, may discover my crystallized memories, and those past versions of myself will finally be able to stop holding on and pass away in peace, knowing that they were remembered. The experience of flipping through my old journals reminds me of something. They remind me of another game, a game where each life event is similarly condensed into brief instances until they summarize the whole. I'm talking about the game Before Your Eyes. The first thing you need to know about the game Before Your Eyes is it's a game controlled by your blinks. You set up your webcam and the game can tell when you blink, and any input you have on the game is from those blinks alone. Now I know that might sound weird, but hear me out. It's not a game with any gameplay. All you do is blink to progress a story. A story I will not be spoiling. This part won't spoil the story of Before Your Eyes whatsoever, but I'll give you a little rundown. Before Your Eyes is a game about life. It's a game about living the life of a person through the messy lens of memory. Every time you blink, the game switches from one scene to another in the future. I can't separate the feeling of playing Before Your Eyes from the feeling of randomly flipping through my old journals. The scenes in Before Your Eyes are as incomplete as my journals. Much like real memory, you can only see the main parts, never anything specific. There's a persistent black void around a lot of the finer details. Sometimes scenes go on so painfully long that you just can't help but blink. Another time you'll go into a new memory and sneeze accidentally, immediately ripping it away from you before you can relive it. I've ripped out pages of my journal because they were so embarrassing, only moments after writing them, and where those lost pages are, I have no clue. I've likely blinked myself out of several potential memories I would have had now, and I think it's those kinds of details that make Before Your Eyes so appealing to me. It was like peering into someone else's journal, one that was identical to mine in structure. Every blink was a flip of the page. I never quite knew how long into the future I was going or exactly where I would end up, but I still flipped. Before Your Eyes is different from my journals. I won't pretend like it's the exact same. It takes you not blinking to stay in a moment. You must strain yourself just to remember. It'd be like if I only had 15 seconds to examine every page of my journal before it disappeared completely, and I flipped to the next one. Before Your Eyes is all about wanting to remember, but you know that no matter how much you stay here for, no matter how much you don't want to go, you know that you will eventually blink, and it'll be gone. The game itself seems to hate that you have to leave each moment, telling you, begging you, stay here, stay now. But of course you can't. No matter how much you want to stay in this comfortable little moment forever, you must leave. The present moment is the most valuable thing we have, and yet it can be skipped over so easily. Let me ask you this, how much do you really remember? I find that even with my journals, if you look at my life as a whole, I don't remember much. I've spent a sizable amount of time in school, hours in class waiting for the bell to ring. Every school day always felt the same. Even though the time I spent during the 4th grade was documented, I would be hard-pressed to tell you any specific details. Every day just blended together with some standout moments I remember only through my journal. The knowledge of what I would have forgotten if not for this journal is melancholic for me, because all it reminds me of is the things I haven't written down, the things I have truly forgotten. In Before Your Eyes, all of your education is relegated to a handful of moments in school. Every time I go to school now, I wonder to myself if I'll even remember any of this, if anything I do today even matters, if the version of myself that exists now is doomed to be forgotten. And I always come to the same conclusion. If I don't try to document it carefully, nor does anything particularly interesting happen, I probably won't remember. And it's like this for 95% of the days. Will you remember this video? Will you remember this day? Will you remember what screen you're watching this on in 30 years' time? Or what genre of YouTube video you preferred? I don't think I will. And I doubt you will either. Before Your Eyes showed me this in a way I desperately needed to see. Before Your Eyes gives you spontaneous moments, sure, a brief rush of excitement. But for every exhilarating moment, there are 10 of pure living. Not the parts you remember distinctly, just the present moment at its fullest. Lots of bubble baths and car rides and building furniture. It's not a game about the exciting memories, it's a game about the importance of the present, the value of all those moments you will never remember, those moments you are living right now. Before Your Eyes told me to embrace them, so that maybe I can remember a little bit more. So often I see people reminiscing about how much better childhood was, and how they long to go back to these simpler times. You see it all the time with various nostalgia-based videos, Minecraft OSTs, 90s toys, ads from the 2000s. People want to stay here. They want to cling to the past no matter how inevitable moving on is. And it's in this desire to stay in the past that people don't realize just how much of the present they're blinking through. It's hard to realize that in 10 years from now you'll probably feel the same way about right now as you felt for those moments in the past you refused to let go. But the difference is, you are here right now. So hold on to it. Everything done must be forgotten. Nobody can escape forgetting. No con man, no child, no millionaire, no ruler. Everything built will be destroyed. Given enough time, we will all forget. It's easy to fall into despair knowing this fact, but I feel like our attempts to remember aren't in vain. I know it's weird, considering one day these memories too will be forgotten. One by one, each of my 10 journals will surely no longer exist. They might outlive me, sure, but they won't live forever. But there still is this desire, this thing that I long for. I want to remember. I want to remember the present. I don't want the version of myself writing this right now to no longer exist. It's why even at a young age I wrote in journals. It's why I was so drawn to Season. It's why I love Polaroids so much. At times it can feel hopeless, like remembering everything is completely impossible. And maybe it is. Maybe you'll never get back the feeling of right now. Maybe you can't capture it in text or pictures or audio, maybe you'll try anyway. And maybe that's okay. In our digital world, the desire to remember is at an all-time high, simply because the lifespan of things has increased so much. It seems like things are being forgotten less and less because we have the utilities to remember now. But when one is so desperate to capture a moment, a story, a life event, they forget to actually live it. They forget to be present right now. They lose it. I know I've had the experience, being so caught up in remembering something in the future that I forgot to experience it in the present. I doubt I'm the only one to be so focused on capturing a video of something cool that they forget to actually experience it. We should all collectively learn to experience the present moment, because when you ignore it, it leaves you that much quicker. And what are you left with besides imperfect memories? The desire to remember and be remembered is important, but you don't live in the past or the future. You are in the present moment. You live right now. Not everybody can say that.